Hey everybody, another GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Necromunda, Tribes of the Wasteland, the latest supplement for modern Necromunda. I want to call it like Necromunda 2018 now, because as we've come forward in time, this has been consolidated into two big primary rulebooks, obviously the Necromunda rulebook and the Gangs of Necromunda, and then all the house books, yada yada. But this book is taking the Wasteland update, the Ash Waste Nomads, fleshing them out substantially and creating sort of almost like a mythology around them where we learn a little bit more about their role in Necromunda. This is, as always, a very high quality from the Forge World team, almost 100-page book. I think it's 80 pages or something like that. Where are we at total? 118, that's right. It's 118 total pages that go through everything you could possibly want to know apocryphally about the Ash Waste Nomads. It's a story told from the point of view of the Hivers, because the Ash Waste Nomads, there could be millions or billions of them on the planet, and no one would ever know. There's 4 distinct tribal sort of like affiliations that you can play as in here, which is a new thing. And then we've got all the different gang sort of like components. The Chieftain, the Watcher, the Stormcaller, the Dust Rider, the Warrior, the Hunter, and the Dust Runners. 3 new hired guns. Outcasts, who are sort of the... I'm going to put a lot of this in Dune terms, because if you've never read Dune, they're very much the Fremen, right? The Hivers are very much the Atreides or the Harkonnens who've come to the planet to take advantage of it. And these are the people living out in the waste, and they've adapted to the world they live on. The Harrier and the Agents. So outcasts are basically the equivalent of hive scum. Harriers are the equivalent of bounty hunters, where they can be like customized and stuff like that. And then house agents are these like super elite spy people who walk, they're the Dr. Kinds, right? They can walk amongst the Fremen basically, and have been like adapted into their life. We got new rules with Wasteland skills, a whole new skill set for them to have. Warrior spirits from the different 4 tribes, they can all call upon it. So you roll a number of dice, you roll a number of champions and leaders in your gang, and then they can call upon these like once per game abilities. And then some special scenarios, the Outland Ambush and the Dune Scuttler Hunt. And finally, a full reprint. So it puts it all in one place, all their rules, all their armor, and also really, I'm just going to say this now, all of the weapon traits are put in here as well. So like you can, a lot of the kind of like problems, I don't say problems, one of the barriers to entry right now for Necromunda is there's a lot of stuff divided amongst a lot of books. They've kind of internalized that, I think, in the design team for Necromunda now. And they're not afraid when they consolidate stuff to reprint some of the essentials, like what do all these weapons do? Like this is stuff from the core rulebook, parry, knockback, lance, gas, all that stuff. This is in the core rulebook. But other things like the more like esoteric special rules, they just reprint in here so that when you look at your gang equipment, you don't have to flip through 3 different books to see what they do. You can just bring this book and the core rulebook to a game and know everything you know about your gang. And I really appreciate that, because a lot of like rulebook, Gangs of the Underhive, house book is a lot of space. It's a lot of real estate for your rules to be taking up. So making like a firm commitment to, and a lot of people, I think some people might think it's a barrier, like they're trying to inflate page count. When you actually play Necromunda, having everything you need to know for the gang that you're running in one place is incredibly handy. So please don't stop doing it. Any naysayers who are like, they're just trying to push the page count up, it's a real life convenience for when you play Necromunda. Take it from someone who's played a lot of Necromunda. Having it in one place is very much worth it. And I wanted to get that out of the way at the beginning, that I really appreciate that. So the first, I think it's like 50-ish pages, roughly until you get into gang composition, is about the background of a lot more information than we've ever really had about the Ash Waste Nomads and who they are. And again, it's told from the POV of the Hivers. So you don't really know how much of it is story and how much of it is real. A lot of the terminology is the names that the Hivers have given to the Ash Waste Nomads equipment and their junk. There's a lot of like, we don't know why a lot of this stuff works or where these people came from. There's some stuff about the actual anthromite. So like the insects don't appear to be native to Necromunda. They're probably the genetic ancestors of like bugs that were on the starships that colonized the planet. And the radiation and like just the adversity inside Necromunda has made them grow huge, and now they're just livestock for the Ash Waste Nomads. And there are various sort of like roles inside Ash Waste Society. So like, yeah, it gets really into sort of the stories of what they've done and the tales of like their exploits. There's an entire tribe that's inside the dust wall of Hive Secundus. Hive Secundus being the last 2-player starset that came out for this game, where it was basically a Gene Stealer uprising, and they set off gravitic like warheads and sink the entire hive into a giant pit to try and keep the Gene Stealers coming out. Because they know that if the Imperium ever finds out that this Gene Stealer cult was on the planet, or they ever get too big, they're just going to completely destroy the planet. So the governor, destroys it, and they keep everything behind this like cordon wall where nothing can get out. Except there's still settlements in there, and also an entire tribe of Ash Waste Nomads who are just left to like prey on people. It's basically the plot for the movie Doomsday. If you've ever seen the movie Doomsday, very underrated movie, and also proves that at the end of every movie, like in Book of Eli, Malcolm McDowell is usually the villain, or he's at the end of every apocalypse journey somewhere. Where they've cordoned off Scotland because of a plague. Great movie. Very, very underrated film. So yeah, then we get into the actual gang itself, and this pulls together a lot of like online updates. A lot of these missions were released kind of like in dribs and drabs, like the Skycaller and stuff like that. Their rules were like little separates. It's all in this book now. Their specialist weapons, like their blast weapons, they all have shock. The fact that they use looted equipment, so like worse ammo rolls for like a scavenged autogun or a scavenged stub pistol. And we have our new skill set here. So secondary, you can get the Wasteland skills now. Primary is going to be cunning and leadership for the leader. He's mostly a shooter or a close combat fighter because he's like a duelist. Whereas the Watchers are more shooters with their ambushing convoys and stuff like that. And they get Wasteland skills as primary. So it's interesting, the leader, he's more of like the guy who can challenge people in the fighting pit. He can challenge Paul Muad'Dib to fight with his Chris knife. Whereas the Watchers are like the ambush dudes who like go and get all the actual loot and scrap off of the hivers who are traveling through the wastelands. And again, they're shooters, not fighters. We have our Stormcaller, who is our special like rider character who can do the call the weather and change the visibility rules for outside. Again, this isn't a gang you necessarily want to take to the Underhive. They're very much meant for playing in the wastelands with like vehicles and their mounted troops. They don't get vehicles, sorry, they get all the anthracites. And then we have the Dusk Rider, who is the mounted troop on their anthracites, anthromites, helomites. Sorry, these ones. Anthracites is the genus that they call it. Helomites are the actual ones they ride. There's also rules now for having, and I should have mentioned that earlier, you can have unbound Helomites as just like buddies that hang out with you. So even like the Watcher champions can just have unridden Helomites that act as like little guard dogs, and so can the champion. They can also ride them as mounts. You get your Dust Riders who can also take the like extra ones. So I don't know where you would get extra ones. I guess you could like carve the saddles off of them, or like fill them in. Your Gangers, which is your warriors, your basic warrior guys on foot. Your Hunter, who's your specialist, gets all the long weapons. And then he counts specialist weapons as being basic weapons instead. And then your Jubies, which is your Dust Runners. You can have a Spine Worm as one of your, so that's, Arthromite Spine Worm, which is one of the bug creature Spine Worms. It's like a kind of melee monster. It's not your brute though. You do get a separate brute. And if they become heroes, they actually get access to secondary agility and primary cunning skills too. And they can burrow, so they can move through impassable terrain. And that would actually make them kind of neat in like an Underhive game, because they could go under the walls and come out the other side because they just chew through everything. Your Unbound Helomites, for 30 creds, you can actually take the little hoppers by themselves, and they're called Duskbacks, because if they have dust on their back, it means no one's riding them. They don't have saddles, which is kind of a cute little thing. And then your Ashwings are little flying bugs, who are like a larval version of the Helomites. And they get used again as exotic beasts. Yeah, the Dust Wall. So this is talking about where the cordon is for Hive Secundus, and the fact that I think it's what are they called? The Urgnag tribes of Ash Waste Nomads who are just left free in those territories to terrorize people. Herders is one of your hanger-ons. This guy's, his ability is to control the Unbound, so either the Dustbacks or the Wings. And they always start with the Ghost of the Waste skill. Your Brutes is the Arthromite Dune Scuttler, which is your big guy. Toughness 5, Strength 5, 3 wounds, 4 attacks, hard to kill. When rolling on the lasting injury table for it, roll twice and apply whatever rating you want. And then you start with Clamber, Fearsome, and Nerves of Steel. You get Agility, Combat Primary, and then Ferocity Secondary. Really simple, very, very basic, like brute, but I just think it's cool that they use animals for everything. And then this is your scummer. So your Nomad Outcast can take like a blast. It's basically a scummer that can take all the Nomad equipment. So like a blast carbine, blast rifle, scavenge auto gun. And just like Hive Scum, if there's any rule in a campaign that says take a Hive Scummer, this gang takes the Outcast instead. Same with Bounty Hunters. They'll take the Harrier instead of the Bounty Hunter. And they're always added after crew selection. So like if you hire these guys, even if you're using like a random crew selection, they just show up. Because you got to pay for every game. Your Harriers, which is again multi-stat lines, right? You pick which stat line you want, and they've got the same sort of like rules, special rules for capturing people claiming salvage. It's like we'll get our bit if a Nomad Harrier does not generate additional income during a campaign battle via dead, not alive, or claiming salvage special rules. There's a strong chance they will stick around until they do, whether the gang wants them to or not. So if at the end of the update roster step of the post-battle sequence, only one of the dead, not alive, or claiming salvage special rules has been used, roll a d6. On a 4 or higher, the Nomad Harrier is dissatisfied with their earnings and is available to, for the recruiting gang's next battle for free. If it's 1 to 3, they take their credits and they leave. So like sometimes they'll just stick around if they're not satisfied with how much they got paid. And then your house agents, which again is it's like a higher level champion. But you got to see if they show up. You got to petition to have them show up. And then our one special character, Asungar, the Lady of Ash, hundreds of years old. This character is basically like a ghost in the wastes. And they've got like they're a house agent basically, right? So we don't really know. They follow the house agent rules. They're probably an Ash Waste Nomad, but their origin's different. They also might be a many masks thing where this character's like, it's a person that comes over, generations and people take up the mantle. They've got Terra's Shadow, which is a weird like grapple hawk that follows her around and flies. So her actual like rules, again, you have to petition to find her. On a 1 to 8, so it's a d6 plus your rep, you can hire for 120. On a 9 to 15, it costs 240. And on a 16 plus, she's just like, you don't need my help. Your rep's too high. But she'll only work for Ash Waste Nomads. Terra's Shadow has flight, grapple, and swoop. So like swoop is that she has to be within 9 inches of her rather than 3 because she's a flying like exotic beast. Grapple is if it hits a fighter with surrounding talons, it doesn't need to roll to hit that fighter again in subsequent activations because it grabs onto them. And then ignores all your terrain because it flies. She's pretty tough. 3 wounds, only strength up to 3. She's kind of like an Escher hero. Weapon skill 3+, plus skill 4+. Great cool and willpower. Intelligence and leadership aren't that great. She has a blast pistol, stalking knife, and a spirit stave. And she's got Ghost of the Wastes, Infiltrate, Stormwalker, Ash Cloak, Mesh Armor, Sky Mantle, and Terra's Shadow, which is her bird that comes to fight you, which can infiltrate. And that's it. So additional rules. Let's talk about those Wasteland skills, because Ghost of the Wastes is the common one that we saw in the Herders and stuff too. While this fighter is equipped with the Sky Mantle, they treat the hide as a basic action instead of a double action. In addition, if fighting an Underhive battle, they may perform Hide the Waste's basic action as if it was an Ash Waste battle, so they can just disappear. They're kind of like the Predator. They just like melt into the background. Stormwalker, if you're on the battlefield surface, you add 2 inches to your movement characteristics, like a basic move of 8, which is crazy. Eye of the Wasteland treats visibility as 6 inches higher for weather and stuff. Beast Handler. While subject to the mounted condition, this fighter increases the value of X for the additional attacks X traded their weapons by 1. So like anybody that, like basically their mounts are better fighters. Ever vigilant, when making reaction attacks, this fighter makes 1 additional attack and doesn't suffer any penalties to turn to face the opponent. So if you get attacked from behind, you have to turn around to fight back because you didn't die. You're not -1 to hit. And then Bring It Down. This fighter can perform the Bring It Down basic action. Designate an enemy model in line of sight. For the remainder of the round, all friendly fighters, including this fighter, may ignore the rules for target priority and may re-roll the dice to hit while performing the shoot basic action against the designated target. So that's a very cool rule and very good for wasteland battles where there's a lot of open terrain and stuff like that, and you're trying to shoot things like bigger vehicles and stuff that are further away. And then the 4 warrior spirits, as I explained earlier, roll a number of d6s. So first you have to pick which of your tribes and the clans you're from. So either the Baku, the Oil Run Stalkers, the Dustwall Crawlers, which are the ones behind the Dustwall, the Grey Waste Walkers are the lead Sky Seers. And then you roll a number of d6s on this table equal to the number of champions and leaders that you have, and they become once per game abilities. So for instance, if I was at the Oil Run Stalkers, I might roll a 1, a 4, and a 5 because I've got a leader and 2 champions. That means I could use the Sump Spirit of Chahao. The fighter channels the Sump Spirit of Necromunda, its ability to seep into every location. For the duration of the activation, they can pass through impassable terrain, but you can't end your activation on top of it. If I got 3, the Vapor Spirit, as the fighter calls for the Spirit of Vapor, they become weightless, able to rise and fall at will. For the duration of this activation, they can ignore all terrain, move freely between levels that restriction and cannot fall. You basically, you get the Super Mario balloon and you just like inflate. And then 5, Carapace Spirit, as the fighter draws the Spirit of Carapace to themselves, their skin grows thicker, and they get +1 armor save to everything that's not field armor. And if they don't have 1, then they get a 6+ save. So like, they're just neat, and they only last, they can use once per game, they last for the turn, and then they go away. And they're just a fun, like, I can beseech the spirits ability thing without being like Psychers. And they've all got kind of like a different theme based upon where the group's going to be from. A couple new Nomad scenarios, like the Ambush and the Outlands, where you're trying to get to a gang, or the Dune Scuttler Hunt, where you're trying to get the Dune Scuttler. This is the big brute that they have. Really cool model. And then we got our color section. I loved painting these guys. I can't wait to paint more games with them. I actually need to paint my specialists. The big flyer with the Dramatis Personae. And that's just trading post, all the reprints of the special rules and stuff. And then done. Some gang tactics. So there is a deck of cards for these, but they're all printed in here as well. So if you don't, again, this stuff sometimes sells out. Like if you don't get access to these cards, you can roll on the table instead and still have access to them. I do like that they're doing this where they put these in the newer books so that if you didn't get a chance to get your hands on these, then you do have like a backup basically for having them. And of course, in here you also get some gang cards for making your gang with. You get things like Wasteland Medicine. Play this gang tactic after both crews are deployed before rolling for priority. Select a friendly fighter. For the duration of the battle, they're equipped with 1 dose of any chem from the Nomad trading post. Just give them drugs. A Frenzied Helamite. Play this gang tactic when activating a friendly fighter before performing any actions. If they have a Dustback Helamite, for the duration of the activation, their additional attacks go up by 1. Nomad Snipers. Play this gang tactic when activating a friendly fighter before performing any actions. For the duration of the activation, when resolving damage against a vehicle, you can choose which locations hit without rolling the location dice. So just like, they're basically either Fremen or Tusken Raiders from Star Wars. Take your pick which of the tropes you want to lean into. But that's the kind of stuff you're going to get from the cards. And then we get a nice color section. And done. I love this. I love this because, one, I have this gang, and they're one of my favorite things in... I actually have this gang in metal from Fnatic. I have the original... Actually, I think it's pre-Fnatic. I have the original, like, Necromunda magazine version of these guys, and I love that they exist again in this format. So... getting more information about them. I love that it's still apocryphal. 40K is at its best when it doesn't give you all the answers and it gives you conflicting stories and a bunch of like just random info because you get to fill in the blanks. Miniatures are great. Theme's great. It's great to have it all in one place. And I think as far as like these newer books go, this one in particular, Tribes of the Wasteland, is the most complete for a single gang because it reprints everything in there. And that's kind of by virtue of what this gang is. The Squat one did it too, but having it all kind of be in one place, these new Modern Necromunda books, they're a lot more playable because this plus the rulebook is all you need and you have the core of Necromunda. And that just makes the game more accessible. So good job on the design team for this because I do think that this is a more modern way of looking at what these gang books could be along with the Squat one. And I hope that the future books are more like that, where it's just consolidating everything in one place, reprinting bits that are handy to have, and just being complements to the core rulebook so that if you just want to get those 2 things, you can go back and play. And it makes me want to play more Necromunda. Because I haven't played Necromunda in a while, and that's a crime. There should never be a year in GMG where we don't play at least a few Necromunda games. So there it is. Big thanks for watching. We'll see you for more GMG reviews. Ton of Ash. Stop programming.